still might be interested in having children, because I was on the fence at that point, just given my age, but I still wanted to have that option. And it only took a few weeks to narrow it down to one, and she's the one I've been communicating with since November, and we've met a couple of times in person, and it's gone really, really well. And have similar values and goals, and very serious about. Both of us are very serious about being married and finding someone to spend the rest of our lives with. So
okay, so you are communicating with a bunch of women in Ukraine. They speak English fairly well.
Not all of them. Not all of them. But English is a second language for a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll just ask this: what are they looking for, and why are they doing the same thing? Why are they looking at American men as an option? What is the issue in Ukraine that is it similarly frustrated? Are they looking to be more worldly? What is their goal to talk to a guy in Oklahoma, which they probably don't know where that is?
That's a great question. And I wondered the same thing. And what I found in my research was, it's kind of the opposite from problems I've experienced here, where, there's seems to be, at least the places I've gone out looking for someone to meet, there seems to be a lot more single men than there are women, especially once you get to a certain age. And so what I found out about Ukraine is there's a lot more single women there than men, and the good men who have good jobs, good careers, they have left Ukraine, because Ukraine's kind of tends to be a lot of corruption there.
Yeah.
And so they have left and gone other places to follow their careers. And the second piece that I found is men over there are much less willing to marry a woman who has children through another relationship or marriage. And
want to start fresh.
Yeah, exactly. And this woman does have, she has a 13-year-old boy. And so that makes it even more difficult for her to date there.
Does it make it more difficult for her to come here?
Yes, it does, because she has to get the father's approval to allow his son to move overseas, which we initially didn't. We thought that was going to be a problem, and it turned out that she was able to get it. The son's father has no relationship with his son, so he did sign off on it. So that was the big hurdle.
So you're talking back and forth. Early on, does it feel any different than, whatever your experiences were with, dating apps in America or locally? I mean, how did it early on? Did it feel different, if at all?
I'd say it felt different from the fact that I knew right away that she was serious, and that she wasn't somebody who tended to date multiple people at the same time. And that was a big difference to what I was finding here. I found some dishonesty here, just in my own experience with women, what I think women used to accuse men of doing, which is dating multiple people. It's become more common now for women to date multiple men and sort of string them along. And she is a one person at a time type of woman. She only wants to date one person, and she's not interested in dating multiple people. So that was a huge difference.
How long were you married?
I was married. I was only married for 3 years.
Okay. And how long was she married to the father has she been married before?
Yes, she's been married. She was married for 5 years to him.
5 years. Okay. So you had that in common. Now, yes. And I have said this to you before, and do not get mad at me, Oklahoma City people, or even Atlanta people. It seems to me that a lot of women in those places also really want to be married. Now, is what you're saying is the way they go about it is bad because they're juggling 8 guys at a time to try and figure out which one is going to ultimately marry them? It seemed to me, and again, maybe I'm wrong because I never married any of them, that it should be easy to find a woman who wants exactly the same thing that you do in one of those places. Not to, again, I'm not saying anything, but it's not New York City, it's not San Francisco, where a lot of people are super ambitious and career and sort of the family marriage comes second. Is that a bad assumption by me?
Well, I think it's a little misguided. I can't speak to Atlanta. I can't speak to Atlanta anymore because I've been removed from Atlanta for 8 years. I do believe that I would have had an easier time in Atlanta. The big cultural difference between the East and the Midwest is, people go to college here to meet their spouse in the Midwest or in Oklahoma, and they end up getting married at 22, 23. They don't wait as long as they do in other parts of the country.
But whereas
in Atlanta, you could
38.
I'm sorry.
Then don't they get divorced like you did, and they're back out in the pool?
Yeah, with a lot of baggage.
Oh. Okay.
Maybe they're still having to communicate with an ex-husband they don't like. They've got 2 or 3 kids, and and it gets more complicated.
It does, but I can't imagine it gets more complicated than trying to date somebody 7,000 miles away, also with a kid who you like. These are questions I'm sure a lot of people would ask you. Like, couldn't you just have gone to Houston for a few months? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Sorry to whatever her name is. I'm sorry. I will get to her name in a second. But couldn't you have gone to, I don't know, Kansas City? I don't know.
Well, I tried Dallas, actually. I tried starting long distance. Dallas is a 3-hour drive from here. And I tried to start, relationships in Dallas, and they weren't willing to do the distance.
Mm-hmm.
So she was more willing to do, say, a 6,000 mile, type of long distance relationship than someone 200 miles away was.
Yeah, that's a good point. A lot of people won't date somebody 7 miles away in America. So I do that. That is a reasonable answer to that. So you're talking back and forth. How you get pictures of each other right away? Yes.
And we Skyped right away. So she had recent pictures on her dating profile, and as did I. I had just done some professional pictures, and those were on my dating profile. So we had those pictures, and then we pretty quickly started Skyping about once a week.
So that takes the catfish worry out of it pretty quick.
Correct.
Right, which is smart because that is a thing. That's even a thing here. And you're Skyping once a week, and then when do you know or think, like, you know what, this might be somebody I can go down this path with?
It really didn't take long. It took, I would say, we started talking in November. I would say by January, I was ready to meet her in person, and that's when I started planning to go to Ukraine to meet her.
Oh, wow. And so you went to Ukraine?
I did. I flew to Ukraine in March.
Like, let's meet in Madrid or somewhere halfway?
Well, actually, what we did was I flew to Kiev, and this is right as the pandemic was starting. That's another story. But I flew to Kiev, and I spent a couple nights in Kiev, and she showed me around a little bit, and then we flew together to Barcelona and spent a week in Barcelona together.
Oh, I happened to guess Spain. That was a pretty good guess, Brian.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how nervous were you compared to any other sort of semi-blind date that you've been on? Were you excited, or were you like, this is a long way to go, I hope this is what I think it is?
Yeah, I was excited because I thought we were a good fit personality-wise, but I was very concerned about, if there was going to be mutual chemistry. So that was the one concern I had going in. But it didn't take long to realize that there was chemistry, from the first couple of hours together. So
and I've seen pictures of her. She is absolutely lovely. So you did work out on that. Did work out. So you fly there, and then when does the discussion about how could this work or how would this work happen? Was there ever a like, hey, do you want to move to Ukraine? Or is it, I'm looking for somebody to come to my city and potentially start a life with me? Like, when does that conversation happen?
That I would say that happened when we were in Spain, and it probably actually happened before that when we were talking before we met in person. She had told me that she wanted a new start. She wanted to get out of Ukraine, and she was considering Canada because evidently there's a pretty large Russian Ukrainian population in Canada, which I wasn't aware of. But she was considering Canada or America. So she definitely wanted to move. So there was no discussion about me moving to Ukraine.
Has she ever been to America before?
No.
Has she seen it on TV? Did you have to explain Oklahoma City to her?
Yeah, she would rather be in Atlanta than Oklahoma City. But I did explain to her that the adjustment for her and her son would be easier in Oklahoma City just because it's a slower pace.
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, it is hard to explain the culture here. And she considers herself a little more westernized. She's done a lot of reading and watching videos on America and relationships, international relationships, and she's tried to educate herself as much as she can.
What did she have any stereotypes of Americans or American men that were misguided, or was she pretty spot on because she watched a lot of episodes of Friends?
It's funny you say Friends because she does watch Friends. She had one stereotype that was misguided, which was that an American man just wants a woman to come here, from another country and just wait on him hand and foot, and do everything around the house, just take care of him like a mother. And that is not what I'm looking for. And I was very upfront about that with her.
Right. Well, that's good. Yeah. I mean, a lot of men here, but some men here probably do want that. And some women have that expectation too. But so you have this discussion, you have mutual values, you have mutual goals, and then you have to get into the logistics of, well, how, because you can't just go grab somebody and marry them and they're a citizen anymore like the old days. Or maybe that was never the case, but I think it was. What is the process now? And is Ukraine different than if you had somebody from another country?
Well, I don't know the differences between Ukraine versus other countries as far as the process goes. I mean, I have heard that there are countries where it's more difficult to get approved. I had not heard that about Ukraine. It might be more difficult, and it might be easier in Ukraine than it would be in, say, Russia.
Well, there seems to be a lot of money flowing back and forth between certain American men and Ukraine interests. So who knows?
True.
I'd have to make a few calls to DC. So you're would you like to start the process of moving here, coming here?
Yes. And so the process normally takes about 3 to 5 months for the K-1 fiance visa to be approved.
And that's literally what it's called, a fiance visa?
It's called a fiance visa.
And
yeah, this is my own version of 90-Day Fiance is what we're talking about.
Well, exactly. So that's something that our government set up called a fiance visa? There's a whole category? Wow.
Yes. So it takes, in a normal year, 3 to 5 months to get that approval. It's taken us 6 months plus. We still don't have it. Once we get it, that's not the final step. There's another step where she has to interview with the U.S. Embassy over there. We have to prove this is a real relationship. We have to, have proof that we met in person. We have pictures together. the last time we met in person was last month, and I actually proposed and gave her a ring.